Have you ever wondered why being alone feels dangerous? Not rationally dangerous, not the kind of danger you can point to and explain, but dangerous in some deeper, older way. Why a quiet house at night can make your chest tighten. Why eating alone in a restaurant can feel exposing in a way that makes no logical sense. Why the prospect of a weekend with no plans, no messages, no human contact can fill you with a dread that seems entirely out of proportion to the actual situation. Here's what makes this so strange. You're safer alone in your modern home than humans have been at almost any point in history. You have locks, lights, shelter, food. You have communication devices that can summon help in seconds. You have neighbours nearby, police a phone call away, emergency services that can arrive in minutes. By every objective measure, solitude should feel like security, privacy, freedom, the luxury of not having to navigate other people's needs and expectations and emotional states. And yet, some part of you recoils from it. Some ancient alarm system treats isolation like a threat, like a predator, like something that could kill you if you're not careful. This isn't neuroticism. This isn't social anxiety or attachment issues or modern pathology. This is something older. Something that was already ancient when humans learned to speak. A survival mechanism so fundamental to your species that it's woven into every cell, every synapse, every heartbeat. Loneliness isn't a feeling that happens when you're alone. It's a signal, an alarm, a warning system that evolved over millions of years to keep your ancestors alive in a world where separation from the group meant death. And it's still here. Still firing, still treating isolation like an emergency, even though the dangers it evolved to protect against mostly don't exist anymore. But here's what's really fascinating. This signal, this alarm that we call loneliness, it's not one thing. It's many things. Layer upon layer of evolutionary adaptations, each one serving a slightly different purpose, each one calibrated to a different type of social danger. And all of them still active in you, still functioning, still trying to protect you from threats that dissolved thousands of years ago. The loneliness you feel when you're physically alone, that's different from the loneliness you feel in a crowd of strangers. The ache of being unknown is different from the ache of being unvalued. The pain of rejection operates on different neural pathways than the pain of isolation. Each one a distinct alarm, a specific warning about a specific type of danger your ancestors faced. And all of them, every single variation of this feeling, they emerged because your ancestors were weak. Individually, they were nothing. Easy prey. Slow, soft, poorly armed mammals wandering through environments filled with things that could kill them. Their only advantage was each other. The group was their armor, their weapon, their survival strategy. If you're using this to fall asleep, that's exactly why I make these videos. So maybe subscribe and let me know where you're listening from and what time it is there. I always check the comments and it's fascinating. In Seattle at midnight, Mumbai at midday, Berlin in the quiet hours before dawn. All of us lying in our safe modern beds, carrying the same ancient alarm system, trying to understand why being alone can feel like such a threat. Over the next 2 hours, we're going to trace this feeling backward through time. We're going to walk through the millions of years when your ancestors learned, generation by generation, that connection wasn't just pleasant, it was necessary. That the group wasn't just company, it was survival. That being separated, being alone, being cut off from the protective web of human relationship meant you were about to die. We're going to explore how this survival signal shaped the entire architecture of human emotion, human society, human consciousness itself. How it created capacities you might take for granted, cooperation and empathy and language, all of them emerging from the fundamental equation that alone equals vulnerable equals dead. We're going to walk through specific moments in prehistory when different types of loneliness emerged. When physical separation became emotionally painful, when rejection became as dangerous as physical injury, when being unknown or unvalued or misunderstood became survival threats that required their own specific alarm systems. And maybe, just maybe, understanding where this feeling comes from will help you make sense of it. Not eliminate it. You can't eliminate millions of years of evolutionary pressure, But perhaps you can stop judging yourself for feeling lonely when you're surrounded by people. Stop wondering why connection feels so necessary. Stop fighting the part of you that needs others in a way that seems almost desperate sometimes. Your loneliness isn't weakness. It's a message from every ancestor who survived, because they understood that humans are not solitary creatures, that we evolved uniquely among all the primates to depend on each other in ways that made us vulnerable, but also made us powerful, made us capable of things no individual could achieve alone. So get comfortable. Let your breathing slow. The story of your loneliness begins not with you, but with creatures who are barely human, learning the first hard lessons about what it means to be a social species. Picture this. It's 6 million years ago, give or take a few 100,000 years, somewhere in East Africa, in forests that will eventually give way to savanna, there's a population of primates. They're not human yet, not even close. But they're your ancestors, the great-great-grandparents, thousands of generations removed, of everyone who would eventually become human. And they have a problem. These primates, these proto-hominids, they're weak. Individually, they're not particularly impressive. They're not the biggest apes, not the strongest, not the fastest. They don't have the powerful canine teeth of baboons, those inch-long fangs that can tear flesh and intimidate predators. They don't have the massive size of gorillas, the sheer physical presence that makes even leopards think twice. They are medium-sized, relatively vulnerable primates in an environment filled with things that eat primates. They weigh maybe 40 to 60 pounds, about the size of a 10-year-old child. They can climb, but they're not as good at it as the monkeys who live in the same forests. They can move on the ground, but they're awkward. Still learning to balance on two legs part of the time, dropping to all fours when they need to move quickly. In a one-on-one encounter with almost any predator, they lose. A leopard would kill them in seconds. A large python could constrict and swallow them. Even a troop of baboons, if aggressive, could tear them apart. But they have something. A strategy. A way of surviving that's rare in the primate world, though not unique to them. They stick together. Not occasionally, not just when convenient. Constantly, obsessively, in a way that will eventually become the defining characteristic of their descendants. They move as groups, they feed as groups, they sleep as groups, they defend territory as groups. The individual is rarely, if ever, alone. A typical group is 20 to 40 individuals, large enough to provide protection, small enough that everyone knows everyone else, close enough that they can maintain constant vocal and visual contact. They will not shunt as they move through the forest. They call to each other. Soft hoots, grunts, chirps, a constant stream of sound that says, I'm here, you're there, we're together, the group is intact. And when that sound stops, when someone goes silent, when an individual drifts out of range or falls behind, the group notices. They stop, they call, they wait. Because separation is dangerous. Because being alone, even briefly, means being vulnerable. And here's what's crucial to understand. This isn't a choice they're making. It's not a conscious decision to form societies or build communities. It's something deeper. Something that will eventually be written into their biology. Into yours. The primates who wandered away from the group, who preferred solitude, who didn't feel the pull of proximity. They didn't leave many descendants. Because in the forests of East Africa, 6 million years ago, being alone meant being vulnerable, and being vulnerable meant being dead. Let's talk about what that actually looked like, what it meant to be a relatively small, relatively weak primate in an environment that was actively trying to kill you. The leopards were waiting. They're still waiting in those forests, patient as stone. Leopards are solitary hunters, and they've evolved a hunting strategy that's devastatingly effective against primates. They watch, they wait, they identify individuals who stray from the group, who move through the canopy alone, who don't have the protection of 20 pairs of eyes scanning for danger. A leopard in the forest is nearly invisible. Their spotted coat breaks up their outline against the dappled light filtering through leaves. They move without sound, padding on soft paws, placing each foot with care that prevents even a rustle of undergrowth. And they're patient. A leopard will watch a primate troop for hours, waiting for one individual to make a mistake, to wander just a bit too far, to become absorbed in feeding and forget to look up. And then they strike, fast, silent, often from above, dropping from a branch onto their prey's back. A primate feeding alone, focused on fruit or leaves, might have only seconds between noticing the leopard and feeling its jaws close around their skull. The bite is precise. Leopards have learned over millions of years of eating primates exactly where to bite. The base of the skull, the back of the neck, crushing vertebrae, severing the spinal cord, causing instant death or paralysis. There's rarely a chase, or rarely a struggle, just sudden efficient predation. But a primate in a group, that's different. 20 individuals means 20 sets of eyes, 20 voices that can raise an alarm. The moment one individual spots the leopard, before it can strike, they scream. A loud, sharp alarm call that triggers instant response in every other group member. And the group responds. They don't run. Running scatters them, makes them vulnerable. Instead, they gather. They close ranks. They make themselves big. They scream, a chorus of voices designed to be overwhelming, intimidating. They throw things, sticks, fruit, whatever's at hand. They mob the predator. 20 screaming primates hurling objects, creating chaos. Being unpredictable, that's not worth the risk for a leopard. They're ambush predators. They need surprise, they need vulnerability. A unified, alert group provides neither. So the leopard moves on, looks for easier prey, waits for another individual to make the mistake of separating. Your ancestors learned this lesson over and over, written in the bones of the solitary ones who didn't survive, written in the reproductive success of those who stayed close, written so deeply into the biology of the lineage that eventually it became automatic. The feeling of separation began to hurt, physically, emotionally, in ways that made staying with the group feel necessary rather than optional. This is where your loneliness begins. In the forests of Africa 6 million years ago, when being alone started to feel like danger, because being alone was dangerous. But it wasn't just leopards. The forests were filled with threats. Large pythons hunted in the same areas. A python doesn't chase, it waits, coiled in branches or on the ground, perfectly still until prey comes within range. Then it strikes, wrapping coils around the body, constricting, cutting off blood flow to the brain. A solitary primate small enough to be constricted could be dead in minutes, swallowed over hours, completely consumed, leaving no trace except a slightly bulging python, digesting somewhere in the undergrowth. But a group of primates makes noise, creates vibration, sends signals through branches that alert the snake of their approach. And if a python does strike, if it manages to grab one individual, the others can intervene, can pull at the coils, can bite and scratch, and create enough disruption that the python decides this meal is more trouble than it's worth. There were other dangers too, less common but no less lethal. Large eagles capable of snatching small primates, crocodiles near water sources, other primate species competing for food and territory, even other groups of their own species, potentially hostile, potentially dangerous. Every threat was easier to survive as a group. Every danger was amplified by isolation. And slowly, generation by generation, natural selection favoured those who felt most strongly motivated to stay close, who experienced separation as pain, who couldn't tolerate being alone for long. The genetic lines that produced solitary individuals, those lines ended, cut short by predation. The genetic lines that produced intensely social individuals, those lines continued, branched, eventually produced you. But something else was happening, something that would make this dependency even more profound. The environment was changing. Slowly, over hundreds of thousands of years, the forests were shrinking. Climate shifts were turning woodland into grassland, trees into savanna. And your ancestors, those forest primates, they had a choice: retreat deeper into the remaining forests, or venture out onto the plains. Some lineages retreated. Their descendants are still in the forests: chimpanzees, gorillas, bonobos. They're strong enough, big enough to survive with relatively small group sizes. A few dozen individuals is enough. They have powerful bodies, intimidating displays, the ability to fight when necessary. But your ancestors, they went the other way. They walked out onto the savannah. And that decision, that move from forest to grassland, that's when everything changed. Because the savannah is not forgiving. It's open, exposed, nowhere to hide. You can see for miles in every direction, which seems like an advantage until you realize that predators can also see you. And unlike the forest, where vertical space provides escape routes, the savannah is flat. Two-dimensional, you can't climb out of danger, you can only run. And your ancestors couldn't run fast. Not compared to the predators. The savannah is filled with specialized hunters. Lions, who hunt in coordinated prides, who can bring down prey 10 times their size. Hyenas, who hunt in packs, who can pursue prey for miles, who have jaws powerful enough to crush bones. Wild dogs, who hunt in coordinated groups with elaborate communication, who rarely fail once they've selected a target. Cheetahs, who can outrun anything on the plains. Leopards who've adapted to ground hunting, who stalk through tall grass invisible until it's too late. All of them faster than your ancestors. Stronger. Better armed with claws and teeth. More adapted to this environment. Natural-born killers in a landscape that offered prey nowhere to hide. Your ancestors had almost nothing. No fangs, no claws, no real speed, no protective armor, no venom, no camouflage, nothing that would give them an edge in a direct confrontation with any predator. Just two things. Their intelligence, which was developing but still primitive compared to modern humans, and each other. The group became everything, not just protection, but survival itself. An individual human on the savannah was food, easy prey, something that wouldn't last a week alone. But a group of humans, 30 or 40 or 50 strong, watching out for each other, maintaining constant vigilance, coordinating their movements, that was different. That could survive. The humans who couldn't maintain connection, who couldn't feel the pull of the group strongly enough to stay close, who wandered off or fell behind or failed to maintain the bonds that kept them integrated into the collective, they were removed from the gene pool, efficiently, brutally, by predators who learned to watch for the isolated, the separated, the alone. And slowly, over hundreds of thousands of years, the pain of separation intensified. It became physical. Loneliness started to hurt in the same way hunger hurts, in the same way thirst hurts, because it was signaling the same thing. Danger, threat, a condition that needed to be corrected immediately, or you might not survive the night. Think about that for a moment. Your capacity to feel lonely, that ache that sometimes keeps you awake at night, it's built on the same neural architecture as pain. The same brain regions that process physical injury also process social rejection. Social isolation activates the same alarm systems as physical threats. The anterior cingulate cortex, which registers physical pain, lights up on brain scans when people experience social exclusion. This isn't metaphorical, this isn't poetic language. When you feel lonely, your brain is treating it like an injury, like damage that needs healing, like a wound that's bleeding and needs attention right now. Because for your ancestors, social separation was an injury, one that could be fatal. The brain that couldn't make this connection, that couldn't feel social pain as intensely as physical pain, that brain didn't take social threats seriously enough, and the human carrying that brain didn't survive long enough to pass it on. So you inherited a brain that treats loneliness like an emergency, that elevates stress hormones when you're isolated, that makes you feel anxious, restless, unable to relax until the condition is corrected. It's not pleasant, but it worked. For hundreds of thousands of years, it kept your ancestors alive. Let's move forward in time. Let's come to a period that anthropologists call the Pleistocene. This is roughly 2 million years ago to about 12,000 years ago. This is when your ancestors were recognizably human, walking fully upright, using tools, developing language, building culture, creating art, thinking symbolically. But they're still vulnerable, still relatively weak compared to the predators they share the landscape with, still dependent on the group for survival in ways that are hard to overstate from your modern perspective. A human alone on the Pleistocene savanna is dead. Maybe not immediately, maybe they survive a few days, even a week if they're lucky and skilled. But inevitably something gets them. Predators, injury, illness, starvation, dehydration, exposure. The savanna is not a place for individuals, it's a place for groups. And your ancestors knew this, not intellectually, though they probably understood it at some level once language developed enough to discuss it, but in their bodies, in the way separation felt, in the anxiety that built when they couldn't see familiar faces, in the relief that flooded through them when they returned to the group after even brief absences. They organized their entire existence around proximity. They moved together across the landscape, following game herds, tracking seasonal resources, never straying far from each other. When they hunted together, coordinating their efforts in ways that allowed them to bring down animals larger and more dangerous than any individual could face. When they gathered plant foods, they gathered in sight of each other, maintaining vocal contact, ensuring no one drifted too far from the protective bubble of the group. When they rested together, not scattered across the landscape, but clustered, maintaining physical proximity, even in stillness. And at night, the most dangerous time, they slept in clusters, bodies touching, even in sleep maintaining physical contact that reassured some deep part of the brain that they weren't alone, weren't vulnerable, weren't exposed to the dangers of the darkness. The camps they made, simple as they were organized around this need. A central fire, if they had fire, sleeping areas close together, no one on the periphery unless they were taking a turn at watch, and even then, close enough to wake others instantly if danger approached. And when someone did get separated, either by choice or accident, or as punishment for violating group norms, the response was visceral. Not just in the separated individual, though they would feel it most acutely, but in the group. Because a missing member meant the group was weaker, meant the protective collective had a gap, meant everyone was slightly more vulnerable. If someone wandered off to relieve themselves and didn't return quickly, the group would call for them, would search, would not rest until the person was found or accounted for. This wasn't altruism in any modern sense. It was survival instinct. The group's survival depended on maintaining its integrity, on keeping all members accounted for, on ensuring no one was left behind where they could all fall prey to dangers the group could have protected against. This created something remarkable, a species-wide sensitivity to social connection, an ability to track relationships, to notice absences, to feel distressed when the social fabric was torn. This would eventually become one of humanity's defining features, the capacity for empathy, for caring about others not because it directly benefits you in the moment, but because their well-being is entangled with yours in ways that might not be immediately obvious, but are profoundly real. But in the Pleistocene it was simpler, more immediate. Someone was missing, that was dangerous, that weakened the group. Find them, bring them back, maintain the group, because the group is survival. And it worked both ways. The separated individual felt the pain of isolation. The group felt the anxiety of incompleteness. Both forces worked together to maintain cohesion, to keep humans bonded in groups large enough to provide protection, but small enough that everyone could maintain relationships with everyone else. Anthropologists call this Dunbar's number, the observation that human groups tend to naturally size themselves to about 150 individuals, small enough that everyone can know everyone else, large enough to provide protection, diverse skills, genetic diversity, social complexity, and this pattern, visible in hunter-gatherer groups, in tribal societies, in historical villages, even in modern social networks, it probably has its roots in these Pleistocene survival groups. Too small and you don't have enough people to defend against threats, to hunt effectively, to maintain genetic diversity. too large and you can't maintain the kinds of close bonds that ensure people will protect each other, share resources, work together effectively. The sweet spot shaped by hundreds of thousands of years of trial and error, written in the genes of those who survived, is right around that 150-person mark. Now, here's where this gets more complex, because humans didn't just need to avoid being alone, they needed to avoid being rejected, being pushed out, being excluded from the group they depended on. Unlike many social species, humans couldn't just join any group. You couldn't wander away from your band and join the next one you encountered. Human groups were built on kinship, on shared history, on complex webs of reciprocal obligation. Everyone in the group knew everyone else. They knew who was reliable, who was generous, who could be trusted in a crisis. They knew the network of relationships, who was related to whom, who owed favors to whom, who had conflicts with whom. If your group rejected you, if they decided you were dangerous or unreliable, or too costly to support, you couldn't just find another group to take you in. Neighbouring groups were often hostile. They were competing for the same resources, the same territory. Taking in a stranger was risky. They might be a scout for an enemy group. They might be violent or unstable or diseased. They might upset the delicate balance of relationships and obligations that kept the group functioning. So rejection wasn't just painful, it was potentially fatal. If your group kicked you out, you were alone, and alone meant dead. This created a new kind of pressure. Not just the need to stay physically close to the group, but the need to maintain good standing within it, to be valued, to be trusted, to be someone the group wanted to keep around, to contribute enough that you were worth the food you ate, the resources you consumed, the care you might need if you got sick or injured. And this is where loneliness becomes something more than just the pain of physical separation. It becomes emotional, social, psychological, the fear of rejection, of being pushed out, of losing your place in the only group that could keep you alive, that became one of the most powerful motivators in human psychology. You can feel it now, that anxiety about what others think of you, that worry about whether you're liked, valued, accepted, that fear of social rejection that can feel, in moments, like a threat to your very existence. That tendency to replace social interactions in your mind, analysing whether you said the right thing, made the right impression, maintained your standing in the group. That's not modern insecurity. That's not social media anxiety or workplace politics or cultural pressure. That's ancient programming running in the background of your consciousness, constantly assessing your social standing because, for your ancestors, social standing was survival. The humans who couldn't feel that fear, who didn't care about their social standing, who couldn't read the subtle signs that the group was losing patience with them, the eye rolls, the excluded invitations, the conversations that stopped when they approached. They got pushed out, and they died, alone on the savannah, with all the intelligence and tool use and language in the world unable to save them from predators that hunted in the dark. So you inherited a brain that's exquisitely sensitive to social feedback, that treats rejection like physical pain because rejection could lead to isolation and isolation meant death. That can feel lonely even when surrounded by people if those people don't seem to value you, accept you, want you around. This is why loneliness is so complex. It's not just about being alone, it's about feeling disconnected, feeling like you don't belong, feeling like the social bonds that should keep you safe and valued are fraying or absent or conditional on a performance you're not sure you can maintain. Your ancestors needed more than proximity. They needed integration. They needed to feel like they were part of something, like they had a place, like they mattered to others in ways that ensured those others would keep them around, would share food with them, would protect them, would care for them if they got sick or injured or older. And when that feeling was absent, when they felt peripheral or rejected or like they could be cast out at any moment, the loneliness they felt was preparing them for the worst possible outcome, for being alone, for being vulnerable, for being without the protection that meant the difference between life and death. Let's think about what this meant in practical daily terms, in the actual lived experience of your ancestors. You wake up in the morning as the sun rises over the savannah. The first thing you do, before you're even fully conscious, before you've opened your eyes completely, is assess your social environment. Who's nearby? Are you still part of the group? Has anything changed overnight? Are you still lying among familiar bodies? Can you hear familiar breathing? This isn't conscious. You're not thinking, I should check if I'm still socially integrated. It's automatic. Your brain is checking constantly that you're still connected, still part of the group, still safe. And if the answer is yes, yes, you're surrounded by the people you went to sleep with, yes, everyone is still here, yes, nothing has changed, you can relax, you can wake slowly. The background anxiety that your nervous system carries doesn't spike. You're safe enough for another day. But if the answer is no, if you wake and you're alone, if the group has moved without you, if you've been left behind, the alarm triggers immediately. Full activation of your stress response. Heart rate spikes, adrenaline floods your system. You sit up, look around frantically. Where is everyone? Why are you alone? This is an emergency. This needs to be fixed right now. Throughout the day, you maintain proximity. Not consciously choosing to do so, though you might make conscious decisions about how to contribute, where to forage, who to talk to, but the basic drive to stay close, to maintain physical and social connection, that's automatic. When the group moves to forage, you move with them. Not because you've been told to, but because the idea of staying behind, of letting them move out of sight and sound creates anxiety. A tightness in your chest. An urge to follow, to maintain contact. When they rest, you rest near them. Close enough to hear conversations, close enough to participate if you want to, close enough that your presence is noted, acknowledged, integrated into the social fabric of the moment. When they talk, you listen even if you're not directly involved in the conversation. Because listening maintains connection, keeps you informed about the social dynamics of the group, lets you track who's allied with whom, who's in conflict, who's rising or falling in status. All information that's crucial for maintaining your own position. Stepping away, even for necessary privacy, creates a low-level anxiety. Not fear exactly, but discomfort. An awareness that you're vulnerable, that you're outside the protective bubble. A desire to return as quickly as possible, to reconnect, to confirm through proximity and social interaction that you're still part of the collective. At night, the need intensifies. Darkness is dangerous. Predators hunt at night, using the cover of darkness to approach close before attacking. So the group clusters together even more tightly than during the day. Bodies touching, maintaining physical contact through the night that serves multiple purposes. Warmth, obviously. The African savanna can get cold at night. Bodies pressed together conserve heat, share warmth, make sleep more comfortable. But also awareness. If something approaches, if a predator tries to enter the camp, the people on the edges will wake, will feel the disturbance, will raise an alarm that wakes everyone else. Physical contact creates a network of awareness that extends across the whole sleeping group. And also reassurance, the constant confirmation, even in sleep, that you're not alone, that you're protected by the group, that you're safe enough to sleep. Your nervous system monitors this through the night. You don't consciously wake to check, but some part of your brain is tracking. Are there bodies nearby? Can you feel warmth? Hear breathing? And if you do wake in the night, maybe to relieve yourself, maybe because of a sound, maybe for no clear reason, the first thing you do is check. Are others nearby? Can you hear breathing? Can you see the familiar shapes of sleeping bodies in the darkness or the firelight? If yes, you can relax. Drift back to sleep. The background anxiety that woke you can subside. You're still connected, still safe. If you wake and find yourself alone, separated from the group somehow, the alarm triggers. Full activation. Where is everyone? Why are you separated? This is dangerous. This needs to be fixed. You won't sleep again until you've found them. Reconnected. Confirm that you're still part of the protected collective. This pattern, repeated every day and night for hundreds of thousands of years, carved channels so deep in human neurology that they're still functioning in you, right now, tonight, as you lie in your bed, alone or not, in your safe modern home with locks and lights and no predators within miles. Some part of your brain is still running the same check your ancestors ran every single night for 200,000 years. Are you safe? Are you connected? Are you part of something that will protect you? And depending on the answers it gets, you feel calm or anxious, content or lonely, safe or vulnerable, even though the actual danger that these feelings evolved to protect against is gone, even though you're objectively safer than your ancestors could have ever imagined being. The feelings remain, the alarm system still functions, the loneliness still hurts, but we're not done yet. We've only begun to explore the landscape of human loneliness. Because this feeling, this alarm system, it didn't stay simple. It evolved. It became more sophisticated, more nuanced, more adapted to the specific challenges of human social life. And in the next part of our journey, we're going to trace those developments. We're going to walk through the different types of loneliness that emerged as human societies became more complex. As language developed and humans could be lonely for being misunderstood. As hierarchies formed and humans could be lonely from being unvalued. As culture evolved and humans could be lonely from being different. So stay with me. Let your breathing deepen. The story of your loneliness is just beginning, and it's stranger, more complex, and more important than you ever imagined. To understand what loneliness actually does, we need to go back to a specific transition in human evolution. Not one moment exactly, but a period of tens of thousands of years when humans became sophisticated enough to be lonely in different ways. When the simple alarm of physical separation evolved into something more complex, more nuanced, more specifically adapted to the unique challenges of being human. Because here's what's remarkable. Your loneliness isn't one thing, it's many things. Different types of disconnection, each with its own signature, its own purpose, its own evolutionary history. And understanding these different lonelinesses might help you make sense of why the feeling can be so varied, so context-dependent, so seemingly contradictory sometimes. Let's start with the oldest loneliness, the one that's probably closest to what other social primates feel, the loneliness of physical separation. Picture yourself as an early human, maybe 500,000 years ago. You're a member of a small band, maybe 35 people, moving across the savannah following the seasonal resources. You've wandered away from the group, not far, maybe 200 yards. Maybe you're following a trail of berries you noticed. Maybe you're investigating a sound, possibly an animal, possibly danger. Maybe you just needed privacy for bodily functions, that brief solitude that even intensely social species require. But you've moved beyond the sight and sound of your band. You can't see anyone. You can't hear the constant low murmur of voices, the sounds of activity, the reassuring presence of others. And immediately you feel it. A tightness in your chest. Your heart rate picking up slightly. A quickening of your pulse. An urge almost irresistible to return. To get back within the protective circle of familiar faces and voices. To reconnect with the group that means safety. This is separation anxiety in its purest form, the feeling that physical distance from the group equals danger. And it's accurate. You're more vulnerable now. A leopard could be stalking you from the tall grass and you wouldn't know until it was too late. A lion could be watching from behind a termite mound. A hyena could be approaching downwind, scenting you but undetected by your far weaker nose. An accident could happen. A twisted ankle, a snake bite, a fall into a hidden hole, and no one would know. No one would hear you call for help. No one would come looking until you'd been missing for long enough that your absence was noticed. And by then, who knows what might have happened. So the anxiety builds. It's not panic, not yet, but a steady increase in tension, your nervous system ramping up, stress hormones beginning to elevate, your senses sharpening, trying to compensate for the lack of the group's collective vigilance. Every sound seems louder. Every movement in your peripheral vision demands attention. Every shadow could be a threat. Every minute you're separated, the feeling intensifies. Not in your conscious thoughts, though you might be thinking about the group, wondering if you should head back, calculating how long you can afford to be away, but in your body, in the way your muscles are tensing, in the way your breathing is getting slightly faster and shallower, in the way your stomach is tightening. This is your body preparing for the possibility of sudden threat, preparing you to run, to fight, to respond to danger that could come from any direction. But more than that, it's pushing you to resolve this dangerous condition of isolation, to get back to safety, to reconnect with the group. And when you do return, when you crest a small rise and see them again, when you hear familiar voices, when you see familiar faces, there's a flood of relief, physical, palpable relief. It washes through your body like a wave, your nervous system down-regulating, your heart rate slowing, your breathing deepening, your muscles relaxing. This isn't conscious either. You don't think, oh good, I'm safe now, I can relax. It's automatic. Your body understanding that the immediate danger has passed. You're back. You're part of the protected collective again. The vulnerability of isolation has been resolved, and the people in the group might look up as you return, might acknowledge you with a glance, a nod, a word, and are not making a big deal of it unless you were gone long enough to worry them. But that acknowledgement matters. It confirms that you're still part of the group, still recognized, still integrated into the social fabric. This type of loneliness, this separation anxiety, it's still with you, still functioning, still activating in situations that resemble, even superficially, the ancestral condition of being separated from protective social connection. You feel it when you're lost in an unfamiliar place, when you're traveling alone in a foreign country where you don't speak the language, when you wake up in the night in an empty house and don't know where your family is, when you're in a crowded place but can't find the people you came with. That spike of anxiety, that urge to find people, to reconnect, to confirm you're not actually alone, that's your ancestral separation anxiety still functioning, still treating physical isolation as a threat, still pushing you to resolve it as quickly as possible. But humans developed other types of loneliness, more sophisticated ones, types that emerged as human social life became more complex, as human consciousness became more developed, as humans became capable of more subtle forms of social connection and disconnection. Let's talk about the loneliness of being unknown. This one is subtle. You can be surrounded by people, physically part of a group, maintaining constant proximity, and still feel profoundly alone because no one truly knows you. No one understands your interior experience. No one sees beneath the surface to who you actually are. This type of loneliness emerged as humans developed more complex inner lives. As language evolved and humans could think about their own thinking. As self-awareness developed and humans became capable of understanding that their internal experience might be different from everyone else's, that what they felt inside might not match what they showed outside. Your ancestors who lived 100,000 years ago, they had rich inner lives. They had thoughts, feelings, experiences that were uniquely theirs. They could remember the past, imagine the future, create mental simulations of possibilities that had never happened. They could feel emotions they didn't express, think things they didn't speak, be something other than what they appeared to be. And at some point in this development, they became aware of this, aware that what was happening inside their heads wasn't directly accessible to anyone else, that they could feel things without showing them, think things without speaking them, that they had an interior self that was separate from their social self. And this created a new kind of vulnerability, because if others didn't truly know you, if they only knew the surface version, the performance, the social mask you wore, then the connections you had with them were built on incomplete information. They might accept the version of you they could see, but they might reject the version you actually were if they ever found out who that was. Think about what this meant in practical terms. Imagine you're a member of a Pleistocene band, you're good at certain things, tracking animals, starting fires, making tools, or you contribute to the group, you're accepted, valued for what you can do, but maybe you have doubts, fears, thoughts that you don't share because they might make you seem weak or strange or unreliable. Maybe you're not as confident as you appear. Maybe you're afraid of things the others don't seem to fear. Maybe you think about the world in ways that don't match how others think about it. You can maintain your social position by hiding these things, by performing confidence when you feel doubt, by concealing fear when others are brave, by keeping your different thoughts to yourself and nodding along when others speak their certainties. But this creates a kind of isolation. You're present with others. You're part of the group, but you're not truly known. The person they know is a performance. The person you actually are remains hidden, unknown, potentially unacceptable. And this is lonely, in a different way than physical separation, but lonely nonetheless. Because some part of you understands that if these people knew who you really were, they might not want you around. The connection you have is real in some ways, but fragile in others, based on partial information, contingent on maintaining the mask. So a new pressure emerged, the need to be known, really known, to have at least some people who saw beneath the surface and accepted what they found there, to have relationships where you could just be genuine, vulnerable, real, and not for fear rejection, where you could share your doubts and fears and strange thoughts and still be valued. Your ancestors who could form these deeper connections, who could be known and still be accepted, they had an advantage. They had more secure social bonds. They had people who would stick with them even when times were hard, even when they made mistakes, even when the social performance slipped and the real person showed through. These were the relationships that could weather conflict, that could survive disagreement, that could provide support during personal crises when the performative self couldn't be maintained. But your ancestors, who could only maintain surface connections, who were never truly known, they were vulnerable in a different way. Because if their position in the group depended on maintaining a performance, on never letting others see who they really were, they were always at risk, always one slip away from exposure, always carrying the burden of hiding, always lonely in that peculiar way where you're surrounded by people but still fundamentally alone. This is where a particular type of loneliness comes from. The loneliness of being surrounded by people who don't actually know you, who like the version you show them but might not like the version you actually are, who accept the performance but not the person. This is why you can feel lonely at a party full of acquaintances. Why being around people who only know you professionally can feel isolating even though you're interacting constantly. Why even long-term relationships can feel lonely if they're built on performance rather than genuine revelation. Your brain is checking, am I truly known here? Can I be real? Or do I need to maintain the mask? And if the answer is maintain the mask, some part of you registers that as isolation, as aloneness, as a kind of disconnection that's just as dangerous in its own way as physical separation. Because your ancestors learned that superficial connections are fragile. They can break under stress. They can fail when you need them most. The people who only know your performance might abandon you when the performance falters, but the people who know your reality, they're the ones who might stay. Now let's talk about another type of loneliness, the loneliness of being unvalued. This one emerged as human groups became more hierarchical, as status differences developed, as some people became more important, more powerful, more central to the group's survival than others. In the earliest human groups, hierarchy existed but was fluid, based on age, strength, skill, personality. The best hunter had status during hunts, the best tracker had status when following game, the oldest person might have status from accumulated knowledge, the most charismatic person might have social influence. But these hierarchies shifted, changed with circumstances. No one was permanently at the bottom, but as groups got larger and social structures more complex, more fixed hierarchies emerged. Some people consistently had more status than others, more say in group decisions, more access to resources, more social power. And this created a new danger. You could be part of the group, you could be known, but if you were at the bottom of the social hierarchy, if you were seen as expendable or burdensome or less valuable than others, you were at risk. Because in times of scarcity, in times of danger, groups make decisions about who gets food when there's not enough for everyone, about who gets protected when protecting everyone is impossible, about who gets care when resources are limited. And the people at the bottom of the hierarchy, they're the ones who get sacrificed. Not literally always, not deliberately always, but in practical terms, they're the ones who get less food, who get less protection, who get less care, and they're the ones who, if things get really bad, get pushed out, exiled, cast away, left to fend for themselves. So a new type of loneliness evolved. The feeling of being present but not valued, of being tolerated but not wanted, of being in the group but on the margins, always at risk of being pushed further out, of sliding from peripheral to excluded to expelled. Your ancestors who could feel this type of loneliness, who could sense when their value to the group was declining, they had a chance to do something about it, to contribute more, to make themselves useful, to develop skills that others needed, to strengthen their bonds with high-status members, to improve their position before it became terminal. Maybe they learned a new skill, became better at something useful, took on tasks that others didn't want to do but needed doing, became indispensable in small ways that accumulated over time. Maybe they formed alliances, helped high-status individuals in ways that created obligation, supported people who were rising in status, positioned themselves as useful to those with power. Maybe they changed their behavior, became more generous with what they had, more helpful in crises, more pleasant to be around, more integrated into the social fabric in ways that made others want to keep them. But your ancestors who couldn't feel this type of loneliness, who didn't notice when they were sliding toward the margins, they often got pushed out without warning. One day they were part of the group, the next they were expendable, and by the time they realized their position was precarious, it was too late to fix it. This is why you can feel lonely, even when people include you, even when you're invited to things, even when you have friends and family around, because some part of you is constantly assessing, am I valued here? Do these people want me around, or are they just tolerating me? Would they choose me, or am I just present by default? And if the answer feels like tolerated rather than valued, the loneliness signal fires. Not as intensely as physical separation, but persistently. A low-grade anxiety that you're not quite safe, not quite secure in your position, at risk of sliding from included to excluded. In your ancestors' world, being unvalued was dangerous. It meant you were vulnerable to exclusion, to being cast out, to losing the protection of the group when you needed it most. So your brain learned to monitor for this. To feel lonely when you're present but peripheral, when you're included but not valued, when you're part of the group but not important to the group. Let's shift to another type of loneliness, one that's particularly modern in its expression but has ancient roots, the loneliness of being misunderstood. This emerged as human culture became more diverse, as different groups developed different languages, different customs, different ways of seeing the world. As the total population of humans expanded and different populations evolved distinct cultural frameworks, your ancestors didn't just need to be part of a group, they needed to be part of a group that shared their basic framework for understanding reality. The same language, the same customs, the same assumptions about how the world works and how people should behave. Imagine being an early human who migrated to a new region. Maybe your original band was destroyed by disease or violence or some environmental catastrophe. Maybe you were captured by another group during a conflict. Maybe you chose to leave for some reason. Conflict within your group, desire for a new start following a person you loved who was joining another band. And now you're living with people who speak a different dialect or even a different language, who have different customs around food, around sleep, around work, around social interaction, who see the world in fundamentally different ways. You could be physically safe. You could even be accepted, integrated into this new group to some degree. They feed you, include you in activities, don't reject you outright. But you would still feel a profound loneliness, because the things that make sense to you don't make sense to them. The jokes you find funny, they don't understand. The stories you tell from your old life, they don't have context for. The way you react to situations, based on how your original group would have reacted, it doesn't match how they react. And you're constantly translating, constantly adjusting, constantly trying to figure out the unspoken rules of this new cultural context, and constantly aware that you don't quite fit, that you're always a bit off, that no matter how well you learn their ways, you'll never be fully naturally one of them. This is cultural loneliness. The isolation of being in a social context where your fundamental framework for reality doesn't match the dominant framework. And it's dangerous in its own way. Because if people don't understand you, they can't anticipate your needs. They can't coordinate with you effectively. They might misinterpret your actions, your intentions, your value to the group. A behavior that was appropriate and valued in your original culture might be confusing or even offensive in this new one. And this creates vulnerability. You might make social mistakes without realizing it, violate norms you don't know exist, fail to pick up on cues that are obvious to everyone else. And each mistake erodes your position slightly, makes you more peripheral, less valued, more at risk of exclusion. So humans evolved to be exquisitely sensitive to cultural fit, to feel lonely, isolated, disconnected when they're in groups that don't share their basic assumptions about how the world works, when the language they speak, literally or metaphorically, isn't the language of the group. This is why you can feel lonely in a new country even when people are friendly. Why being the only person of your background in a workplace can feel isolating even though your co-workers are nice. Why even superficial cultural differences, different communication styles, different humour, different values around time or privacy or hierarchy can create a sense of disconnection that's hard to articulate but very real. Your brain is checking, do these people understand me? Do I understand them? Are we operating from the same basic framework? And if the answer is no, if there's constant translation required, if you're always slightly out of step, the loneliness signal activates. You're present but not truly connected, included but not integrated, part of the group but not fully of the group. Now, here's where the story gets even more complex. Because as human societies grew larger and more complex, a new type of loneliness emerged. One that wouldn't make sense to your distant ancestors, but is incredibly common in your modern life. The loneliness of being anonymous. For most of human history, for 99% of the time humans have existed, you were known. Everyone in your group knew who you were. They knew your name and your family, your history, your strengths and weaknesses, your quirks and habits. They knew your place in the social network, who you were related to, who you were friends with, who you had conflicts with. You weren't just a face in a crowd, you were a specific individual with a specific identity and specific relationships. Your existence mattered because it mattered to specific people who knew you personally. But as human groups grew from bands of 30 to 50, to tribes of hundreds, to chiefdoms of thousands, to states of tens of thousands, to empires of millions, something changed. It became possible to be surrounded by people who had no idea who you were, to walk down a street and see hundreds of faces, none of whom know your name, to exist in spaces where you're completely anonymous, where no one recognizes you, where if you died tomorrow, none of the people you see today would notice your absence. And this creates a particular type of loneliness, the feeling of being one of many, of being replaceable, interchangeable, generic, of existing without being seen, known, or mattering to anyone around you. This is the loneliness of the crowded subway, where you're pressed against dozens of bodies but completely isolated. The loneliness of the big city where you know no one and no one knows you. The loneliness of the large institution where you're just an ID number, a data point, one of thousands. Your brain wasn't designed for this. For the vast majority of human history, being anonymous meant something was deeply wrong. It meant you were far from home, cut off from your people, in a dangerous situation where no one would protect you if something went wrong, where no one would help you if you needed it, where you had no social safety net, no relationships to fall back on, no one who cared whether you lived or died. So when you experience anonymity now, even when it's safe and normal and sometimes even pleasant to be unknown in a crowd, some part of you registers it as isolation, as aloneness, as a condition that needs to be corrected. This is why you might feel more lonely in a big city surrounded by millions of people than in a small town where everyone knows your name. The physical proximity doesn't register as connection if it's not accompanied by recognition, by being known, by mattering to the people around you. Your brain is running an ancient check. Does anyone here know who I am? Would anyone here care if something happened to be here? Am I part of a social network that would notice my absence? And if the answer is no, the loneliness signal fires. You're surrounded by people but fundamentally alone, present in proximity but absent in connection. Let's talk about one more type of loneliness, one that's become particularly prominent in modern life, but has roots that go back to the development of human consciousness itself, the loneliness of disconnection from purpose. Or humans evolved to contribute, to be useful to the group, to have roles, skills, functions that made them valuable. Your ancestors weren't just part of the group for companionship, they were part of it because they had something to offer. They hunted, they gathered, they cared for children, they made tools, they kept watch, they told stories that preserved knowledge, they healed wounds, they mediated conflicts. Everyone had a role, everyone contributed. And that contribution wasn't just economically valuable, it was socially valuable. It gave you a reason to be part of the group. It justified the resources the group spent on you. It made you worth keeping around. Your ancestors who lost the ability to contribute through age or injury or illness, they often felt a profound loneliness even when surrounded by family, because they could sense that their value had diminished, that they were now a burden rather than an asset, that the group's commitment to them was based on past contribution or kinship obligation rather than current usefulness. And some part of them understood this was dangerous, that groups under pressure tend to abandon those who can't contribute. That being useless, even if currently tolerated, put them at risk of being left behind. This is still with you. This is why retirement can trigger profound loneliness for some people. Why losing a job can feel like losing your identity. Why being unable to contribute, whether due to disability or circumstance or just bad luck, can create a sense of isolation that goes beyond the loss of daily social contact. Your brain is checking, am I useful? Do I have a purpose? Am I contributing something that makes me worth keeping around? And if the answer is no, or if the answer is uncertain, the loneliness signal can fare, because in your ancestors' world, people without purpose were people at risk. Now, here's what makes all of this even more complex. These different types of loneliness don't operate independently. They interact, they amplify each other, they create cascades of disconnection that can be overwhelming. You might be physically present with people but feel unknown and unvalued and misunderstood and anonymous and purposeless. Each type of loneliness making the others worse, each disconnection highlighting the others. And your brain, trying to make sense of this complex emotional state, just knows that something is wrong, that you're isolated in ways that are dangerous, that you need to fix this, reconnect somehow. But the solution isn't clear because the problem is multifaceted. This is why loneliness can feel so confusing, so hard to address. Because it's not just one thing, it's many things, all evolved at different times to protect against different types of social danger, all still functioning, all still capable of firing when they detect their specific type of disconnection. Let's walk through what this meant in practical terms for your ancestors. How these different lonelinesses shaped behavior, shaped society, shaped the entire trajectory of human evolution. Physical separation. Loneliness kept groups cohesive, made people want to stay close, made wandering away feel bad enough that people avoided it unless absolutely necessary. This was crucial on the savannah, where distance meant vulnerability. But it also created pressure for groups to stay together even when resources were scarce, even when conflicts arose, even when it might have been easier to split up. The pain of separation, the deep discomfort of being cut off from the group, it kept bands together through difficult times. And groups that stayed together, that could weather scarcity and conflict without fragmenting. They survived. They passed on this tendency to their descendants. The loneliness of being unknown created pressure for deeper relationships, for bonds based on genuine revelation rather than just proximity. This was crucial for cooperation, because if you truly knew someone, if you understood their character, their reliability, their values, you could trust them in ways you couldn't trust someone you only knew superficially. And trust was everything. Trust meant you could cooperate on hunts that required coordination. Trust meant you could share resources knowing reciprocation would come. Trust meant you could leave your children with someone while you foraged, confident they'd be protected. So the humans who could form these deeper bonds, who could be known and know other beings truly, they built more effective social networks. They cooperated better. They survived more reliably. And they passed on this capacity for deep connection. The loneliness of being unvalued created pressure for contribution, for developing skills, for making yourself useful. This drove innovation, specialization, the development of expertise, because the humans who could do things others couldn't, who could contribute something unique and valuable, they secured their position in the group. They made themselves indispensable, and groups with more skilled, more specialized, more actively contributing members, they thrived. They could accomplish things that groups of generalists couldn't. They could weather challenges that would have destroyed less capable communities. So this pressure, this fear of being unvalued, it actually drove much of human cultural evolution. The loneliness of being misunderstood created pressure for shared culture, for common language, common customs, common frameworks for understanding reality. This made cooperation more efficient, made communication clearer, made it easier to coordinate complex activities. And groups with stronger shared culture, with more cohesive worldviews, they could act more effectively as units. They could make collective decisions more easily. They could maintain cooperation even across large numbers. So cultural cohesion, driven partly by the pain of cultural isolation, became a powerful advantage. The loneliness of anonymity created pressure for recognition systems, for ways of knowing who people were even in larger groups. This led to names, to reputations, to status markers, to all the ways humans track identity in groups larger than face-to-face bands. And groups that could maintain individual recognition even at larger scales. They could grow beyond the typical primate group size of 30 to 50. They could form tribes of hundreds, communities of thousands, eventually civilizations of millions, all while maintaining enough individual recognition to prevent the total anonymity that would trigger isolation alarms. The loneliness of purposelessness created pressure for role differentiation. For societies where everyone had a function, where contribution was possible at every age, every ability level, every stage of life, this made groups more resilient, more capable of using all available human resources, more able to support members through periods when they couldn't contribute in typical ways. You see what's happening here? Each type of loneliness, each specific form of disconnection, it didn't just cause suffering, it shaped behavior. It drove social evolution. It created pressure for the very things that made human societies work. Cohesion, trust, contribution, shared culture, individual recognition, role differentiation. Your loneliness, in all its forms, isn't just pain. It's a set of signals that helped build human civilization, that pushed your ancestors to create the social structures that made survival possible, and eventually made flourishing possible. But here's the thing, these signals are still running, still firing, still trying to organize your social behavior according to rules that were perfect for the Pleistocene but often mismatch modern life. You feel separation anxiety when you're alone in your safe apartment. You feel the loneliness of being unknown when your social media shows hundreds of friends who don't really know you. You feel unvalued when your contribution to the economy is abstract and distant. You feel misunderstood when you're part of a culture that doesn't match your values. You feel anonymous in cities of millions. You feel purposeless when your role in society isn't clear. All of these lonelinesses, all of these signals, they're trying to help. trying to push you toward connection, toward integration, towards the kind of social embedding that kept your ancestors alive. But the context has changed so much that the signals often misfire, often create suffering without solving problems, often push you towards solutions that don't actually address the root disconnection, and yet you can't turn them off, can't delete these programs from your nervous system. They're too fundamental, too deeply embedded in what it means to be human. So you carry them, all of them. Physical separation anxiety in a world where you can be alone and safe. The need to be known in a world of superficial connections. The fear of being unvalued in a world where value is hard to measure. The pain of being misunderstood in a world of cultural fragmentation. The discomfort of anonymity in a world of crowds. The ache of purposelessness in a world where traditional roles have dissolved. This is the burden of being a social species in a world that's changed faster than biology can adapt. Your loneliness is ancient. Your solutions are modern, and they don't always match up. But maybe understanding this helps. Maybe knowing that your loneliness isn't one simple thing, but many complex things, each with its own history and purpose. Maybe that provides some framework, some way of making sense of why the feeling can be so varied, so context-dependent, so seemingly contradictory. You're not broken for feeling lonely in a crowd. You're experiencing anonymity loneliness in a context where physical proximity doesn't equal recognition. You're not weak for needing deep connections. You're experiencing the loneliness of being unknown in a world that often rewards superficiality. You're not pathetic for wanting to feel valued. You're experiencing the ancient pressure to contribute, to have purpose, to matter. All of it makes sense when you understand where it comes from, when you see it not as personal failure but as evolutionary inheritance, as signals that served your ancestors well, but now operate in a context they were never designed for. As you're lying there tonight, maybe you can make peace with the complexity, with the fact that your loneliness isn't simple, isn't easy to fix, isn't something you can address with one type of connection or one social strategy. Different lonelinesses require different solutions. Physical separation needs proximity. Being unknown needs revelation. Being unvalued needs contribution. Being misunderstood needs cultural fit. Anonymity needs recognition. Purposelessness needs meaningful role. You can't fix all of them at once, Beho. Can't address every type of disconnection simultaneously. But maybe you can start to identify which type of loneliness you're feeling in any given moment, which alarm is firing, which ancient danger your brain thinks it's protecting you from. And then maybe you can respond more specifically, more effectively, with less of the frantic scrambling that comes from not understanding what you're actually feeling or why. But we're not done yet. Because we've traced where these lonelinesses came from and how they function, but we haven't talked about what happens when you carry them into modern life. When ancient alarms meet contemporary reality, when survival signals designed for the savannah start firing in cities and suburbs and digital spaces, that's where we're going next. To the specific ways your ancient loneliness manifests in your modern world. To the mismatches and the confusions and the suffering that comes from carrying Pleistocene programming into the 21st century. So stay with me. Let your breathing deepen. Your loneliness is complex, but it's comprehensible. And understanding it is the first step toward making peace with it. Maybe you were a good hunter. Maybe you were good at gathering plant foods. Maybe you were good at making tools or starting fires or tracking animals or finding water, or reading weather patterns, or remembering the locations of resources. Maybe you were good with children, or good at healing, or good at mediating conflicts, or good at storytelling that preserved knowledge. Whatever your contribution, it gave you purpose. A reason to be part of the group beyond just consuming resources. A way to feel valuable, a sense that you mattered, because what you did mattered. And this created a particular type of social security. As long as you were useful, as long as you contributed something the group needed, you had a place, you had value, you had a reason to be kept around. But if you couldn't contribute, if you lost your usefulness, through injury or age or skill becoming obsolete, You became vulnerable. You were consuming resources without producing value. And in a marginal existence where resources were limited, that was dangerous. So humans evolved to feel a deep need for purpose, for contribution, for being useful in ways that others valued. And when that feeling of purpose was absent, when you felt like you weren't contributing anything meaningful, a particular type of loneliness emerged. Not the loneliness of physical separation, not the loneliness of being unknown or unvalued in a general sense, but the specific loneliness of feeling purposeless, of consuming without contributing, of existing without mattering in functional ways. This is still with you. This is why retirement can be so psychologically difficult for people whose identity was built around their work. Why losing a job can feel like losing yourself. Why people who can't work, either because of disability or economic circumstances or other barriers, often report profound loneliness even if they have social connections. Because some part of your brain is checking, am I useful? Do I contribute something that others value? Do I have a purpose that justifies my place in the group? And if the answer is no, if you feel like you're just taking up space, just consuming without producing, just existing without contributing, the loneliness signal activates. You might be surrounded by people who love you, who value you as a person, who want you around. But if you don't feel useful, don't feel like you have a purpose, don't feel like you're contributing something meaningful, you can still feel profoundly lonely. Because you're disconnected from one of the fundamental ways humans secure their place in social groups, through contribution, through usefulness, through having a role that matters. So here you are, carrying all of these different lonelinesses, the physical separation anxiety from 6 million years ago, the need to be truly known from when self-awareness emerged, the sensitivity to being valued from when hierarchies formed, the discomfort with cultural mismatch from when human populations diversified, the distress of anonymity from when groups became too large to know everyone, the pain of purposelessness from when contribution became tied to social value, layer upon layer of evolutionary adaptation, each one serving a slightly different function, each one protecting against a slightly different type of social danger, and all of them still active in you, still functioning, still firing in response to situations that resemble, however superficially, the ancestral conditions they evolved to address. This is why your loneliness can feel so complicated, so contradictory, why you can feel lonely in a crowd but fine alone sometimes, why you can feel lonely surrounded by family but connected to a stranger who truly understands you, why you can feel lonely despite having everything you thought you wanted, relationships, success, security, because you're not experiencing one loneliness, you're experiencing many, and they operate independently, responding to different cues, signaling different types of disconnection, each one trying to protect you from a different type of social danger your ancestors faced. And understanding this, understanding the complexity of your loneliness, maybe that helps make sense of feelings that otherwise seem confusing or inexplicable. Maybe it helps you stop judging yourself for feeling lonely in ways that don't seem to make rational sense. Maybe it helps you identify which type of loneliness you're actually feeling so you can address it more effectively. Because physical separation requires different solutions than being unknown. Being unvalued requires different responses than cultural mismatch. Anonymity calls for different actions than purposelessness. Understanding which loneliness you're experiencing might help you understand what you actually need. But we're not done exploring, because we've traced where these lonelinesses come from and how they operate. Now we need to look at what happens when you take all of these ancient alarm systems and drop them into modern life. When you try to navigate a world that's changed faster than evolution can keep up with. When ancestral adaptations meet contemporary reality, that's where we're going next. Into the strange, sometimes painful territory where ancient loneliness meets modern isolation, where the alarms that kept your ancestors alive now sometimes fire in ways that don't serve you, where understanding the mismatch might be the first step toward making peace with feelings that won't go away but might become more manageable. So stay with me, let your breathing slow. We're moving into territory that might feel more familiar, more recognizable. The ways your loneliness shows up in daily life. The modern triggers for ancient alarms. The mismatch between what your brain expects and what your life provides. Think about the last time you felt truly lonely. Not just alone, but lonely. That ache of disconnection that made you feel exposed, vulnerable, almost in danger, even though logically you knew you were safe. Maybe you were scrolling through social media, seeing everyone else's seemingly perfect connections while you sat alone. Maybe you were at a party surrounded by people but unable to make real contact. Maybe you were in a relationship but feeling unknown, unseen, like you were performing rather than connecting. Maybe you were successful, accomplished, surrounded by colleagues and acquaintances, but feeling like none of it mattered, because no one truly knew or valued the real you. Here's the problem with carrying ancient loneliness into modern life. Your alarm systems are incredibly sensitive. They were designed to detect disconnection in small groups where everyone knew everyone, and social bonds were simple, direct, and crucial for survival. But now they're trying to function in a world of vast cities, digital connections, complex professional boss relationships, and social networks that span thousands of people you'll never meet. And they're overwhelmed, constantly triggering, firing off alarms in situations that aren't actually dangerous, but pattern match to ancient threats closely enough that your nervous system can't tell the difference. Let's walk through this. Let's look at the specific ways your ancient loneliness misfires in contemporary contexts, because understanding the mismatch might help you stop taking these feelings at face value. Stop believing that the intensity of the loneliness necessarily reflects the reality of your danger. Start with something simple, something millions of people experience every day. You're home alone on a Friday night. Your friends are out, you've seen their social media posts, or your partner is travelling, or you're single and everyone else seems to be coupled, or you're new in a city and haven't built a social circle yet, and you feel it. That creeping loneliness. That sense that something is wrong, that you should be with people, that being alone on a Friday night means something about your social worth, your lovability, your basic adequacy as a human being. This is physical separation loneliness activating. Your brain is running the same check your ancestors ran. Where is the group? Why am I alone? This is dangerous. This needs to be fixed. But here's the mismatch. You're not in danger. You're in a locked apartment with food and water and entertainment and communication devices. If something went wrong, you could call for help. If you wanted company, you could reach out to people. You're choosing to be alone, or you're temporarily alone due to circumstances that will change. None of this matters to your loneliness alarm. It just knows, alone, Friday night, everyone else is together, you're separated. This is the condition that got your ancestors killed. So the anxiety builds. The feeling that you're missing out. The sense that your aloneness reflects some fundamental flaw or failure. The urge to fix it immediately, even though rationally you know that showing up uninvited to someone's plans or desperately texting people who are busy probably won't actually help. Your loneliness is trying to protect you from a danger that doesn't exist. It's following rules that were perfect for the Pleistocene and nonsensical now, and you suffer for it. Not because you're actually in danger, but because your alarm system can't tell the difference between chosen solitude in a safe apartment and dangerous isolation on the African savannah. Let's look at another scenario, one that's become incredibly common in the digital age. You have hundreds of friends on social media, maybe thousands of followers. You're connected, in some abstract sense, to more people than your ancestors would have met in their entire lives. You can communicate with people across the world instantly. You're never more than a few taps away from human contact, and yet you feel profoundly lonely. This is the loneliness of being unknown. Your brain is checking, do these connections involve people who really know me? Who see beneath the surface? Who would recognize the real me if they encountered it? And the answer, for most of your digital connections, is no. They know your curated public persona, your best photos, your witty captions, your carefully edited presentation of self. They don't know your struggles, your fears, your 3 a.m. anxieties. They don't know what you're like when you're not performing. They wouldn't recognize you without the editing. In your ancestors' world, this was impossible. The people you were connected to, they saw you all the time. They saw you sick, struggling, afraid, angry, weak, real. There was no way to maintain a performance 24/7, no way to show only your best self. The connections you had were based on the full reality of who you were. So your brain, encountering these superficial digital connections, registers them as insufficient, as not the kind of bonds that would protect you if things got hard, as performance relationships that could evaporate if the performance slipped. And the loneliness signal fires. You're surrounded by connections but not actually known. You're visible but not truly seen. You're communicating but not really connecting. The irony is that you might have more people who recognize your name now than at any point in human history. But recognition isn't the same as being known. Visibility isn't the same as being seen. And your loneliness alarm, calibrated for depth rather than breadth, treats this situation as a form of isolation. Let's shift to another modern scenario. One that's particularly painful because it involves people who should provide connection, but somehow don't. You're in a long-term relationship, maybe married, maybe living with someone. You see them every day. You share a bed, a home, a life. By every objective measure, you're connected, and yet you feel lonely. This is often the loneliness of being unknown layered with the loneliness of being unvalued. You're physically present with someone, but do they truly know you? Have you revealed your real self, your fears and desires and weird thoughts? Or have you learned to show only the parts they find acceptable? And do they value what they know? They prioritize you? Make you feel important? Or are you something they take for granted, pay attention to only when convenient, treat as a given rather than a gift? Your ancestors in successful partnerships, they knew each other deeply because they had to coordinate constantly for survival. And they valued each other because losing a partner meant losing crucial support. The relationships that lasted were the ones where both people felt known and valued. But modern relationships can persist even when these elements are weak or absent. You can stay together out of habit or economics, or fear of being alone or commitment to children. And through it all, the loneliness grows. Because your alarm system knows that this isn't the kind of connection that would keep you safe. This isn't the kind of bond your ancestors needed. So you feel isolated while sleeping next to someone, alone while sharing space with a partner, disconnected in the middle of connection. And it's confusing, painful, hard to explain or address, because from the outside you're not alone. You're partnered, you're connected. But your loneliness knows the difference between proximity and true connection. And it won't be fooled. Now let's talk about a scenario that's specific to modern work life, but taps into ancient loneliness in powerful ways. You're successful professionally. You have a title, responsibilities. People know who you are at work. You contribute. You're competent. You're climbing the ladder or at least maintaining your position. And yet you feel a deep loneliness, a sense that none of this matters, that your contributions are meaningless, that you're replaceable, that if you disappeared tomorrow, the work would continue without missing a beat. This is purposelessness, loneliness. Your brain is asking, do I matter? Is my contribution valued? Am I important to the functioning of this group? And in many modern workplaces, the honest answer is no. Not really. You're one cog in a vast machine. Your work is abstract, disconnected from tangible results. You might not even understand how your specific contribution fits into the larger whole. And you know at some level that you're replaceable, that the company could hire someone else to do your job, that your individual value to the organization is limited. Your ancestors didn't face this. In a band of 50 people, everyone was irreplaceable. Everyone had specific skills, specific relationships, specific value that couldn't be easily substituted. If the best hunter died, the group struggled. If the best healer was lost, people suffered. If the person who knew where water could be found in dry seasons was gone, the group was endangered. Individual contribution mattered, was visible, was directly connected to group survival, and everyone knew it. But in modern organisations, your contribution is abstracted, quantified, made substitutable, and your loneliness alarm, checking whether you're valued, often comes back with a negative. Not because you're not good at what you do, but because modern work structures make individual value hard to perceive or confirm. So you feel isolated, disconnected, like you're going through the motions of contribution without experiencing the social recognition and value that should accompany it. And this triggers the ancient fear. If I'm not valued, I'm vulnerable to exclusion. I'm not worth keeping around. Let's look at another distinctly modern form of loneliness, one that many people experience but few talk about. You've moved to a new city, for work, for school, for a relationship, for a fresh start. You're in a place where no one knows your history. No one remembers your childhood. No one has context for who you are or where you came from. You're starting fresh, creating a new identity, and it's lonely. Profoundly lonely in a way that's hard to explain to people who haven't experienced it. This is cultural and historical loneliness. Your brain is asking, do these people understand where I come from? Do they share my context? Can they relate to my experiences? For your ancestors, everyone in your group shared your history. They grew up in the same environment, experienced the same events, held the same cultural references. There was a deep, unspoken understanding that came from shared context. But when you move to a new place, especially a place with different cultural values or norms, you lose that. The things that formed you, the experiences that shaped your worldview, the cultural touchstones that feel important to you, they mean nothing to the people around you. You're starting from zero, building relationships without the foundation of shared history. And your loneliness alarm registers this as isolation, as being among people who can't truly understand you because they don't share your context. Even if they're friendly, even if they accept you, there's a level of understanding that's impossible without shared history, and your brain knows it. This is why immigrants often report profound loneliness even when they're surrounded by helpful, welcoming people. Why military families feel isolated with each move. Why anyone who's started over in a new place knows that it takes years to build the kind of connections that feel as deep as the ones you left behind. Now, here's where modern loneliness gets particularly complex. Because all of these different types, all of these alarms, they don't fire in isolation. They interact, they compound, they create states of disconnection that are far more complicated than anything your ancestors experienced. Picture this. You're in a new city for work. That's cultural/historical loneliness. Your job is abstract and you're unsure of your value. That's purposelessness loneliness. You have colleagues but no one truly knows you. That's being unknown loneliness. You're single in a city where everyone seems coupled. That's physical separation loneliness. You have social media connections but they're superficial. That's another layer of being unknown loneliness. All of these alarms firing simultaneously, all of them creating a sense that something is profoundly wrong, that you're disconnected in multiple ways, that you're at risk, even though you can't articulate exactly what the risk is. Your ancestors could be lonely, certainly, but their loneliness was usually simple. They were physically separated from the group, or they were being rejected, or they were losing status. One problem, one type of disconnection. But you can be disconnected in 6 different ways at once, and your brain, trying to make sense of this complex emotional state, just knows that the alarm system is screaming, that something needs to be fixed, that you're in danger. Then, to make it worse, you judge yourself for feeling this way. You think, I should be fine. I have a job, I have a place to live, I have people I could call if I needed to. Why am I so lonely? What's wrong with me? This is the meta-loneliness. The loneliness about being lonely, the shame about needing connection in ways that seem excessive or pathetic or weak. And it adds another layer of suffering on top of the already painful experience of disconnection. Your ancestors didn't judge themselves for feeling lonely. They understood that loneliness was information, a signal that something needed to change. They felt it, they responded to it, and they didn't add shame on top. but you live in a culture that often treats loneliness as failure, as evidence that you're not self-sufficient enough, not independent enough, too needy, too dependent, not strong enough to be happy alone. So you feel lonely, and then you feel bad about feeling lonely, and then you hide the loneliness because admitting it feels like admitting weakness. And the hiding makes the loneliness worse, because now you're not even being genuine about your emotional state, which triggers the being unknown loneliness even more intensely. It's a trap. A modern trap built on the mismatch between ancient alarms and contemporary values. Let's talk about one more modern scenario, one that's become particularly prominent in recent years. You're working from home, or you're retired, or you're unemployed, or you're a stay-at-home parent. You're home a lot, and most of your interactions with people are digital. Video calls, messages, social media, maybe some phone calls. You're communicating with people constantly. You're not cut off from human contact. You can reach out whenever you want. You're connected in ways your ancestors couldn't have imagined. And yet you feel a loneliness that's hard to name, a sense that something is missing, that these digital interactions, as real as they are, aren't quite satisfying the need for connection. This is what researchers are calling digital loneliness, and it's related to the fact that human connection evolved to be physical, embodied, involving all the senses. When your ancestors connected with someone, they could see their face in full dimension, hear the full range of their voice, smell them, sometimes touch them. They could read micro-expressions, body language, energy. They got data from dozens of channels simultaneously. But digital interaction is limited. You might see a face on a screen, but it's not the same. The eye contact doesn't work right. The timing is off. You can't read body language when you can only see someone from the shoulders up. You miss all the embodied information that helped your ancestors assess trust, read emotions, build genuine connection. So your brain, encountering these limited digital interactions, registers them as incomplete, as not quite real connection, as better than nothing but not sufficient to satisfy the deep need for physical, embodied, multi-sensory human contact. This is why video calls can be exhausting, why you can finish a day of digital meetings feeling drained rather than connected, why texting all day with friends somehow doesn't prevent loneliness the way spending an hour together in person does. Your loneliness alarm is checking for specific forms of connection: physical presence, embodied interaction, full sensory engagement, and digital communication, for all its advantages, doesn't fully satisfy those ancient criteria. So here you are, living in a world where you can be connected to thousands of people while feeling profoundly alone, where you can be in relationships while feeling unknown, where you can be successful while feeling purposeless, where you can communicate constantly while feeling disconnected. All of it driven by alarm systems that are trying to help, trying to push you toward the kinds of connection that kept your ancestors safe. But the context has changed so much that the alarms often misfire, often create suffering without solving problems, often push you towards solutions that don't address the underlying need. You can't fix this by just getting more connections. More friends won't help if they don't truly know you. You can't fix it by just being around people more. Proximity without depth just triggers different alarms. You can't fix it by just being more successful. Achievement without genuine value and recognition doesn't satisfy the need to matter. Each type of loneliness requires its own specific solution. And modern life, with its emphasis on breadth over depth, quantity over quality, individual achievement over a collective contribution, often makes those solutions harder to find. But maybe understanding this helps. Maybe knowing that your loneliness isn't simple, isn't easily fixed, isn't evidence of failure. Maybe that provides some framework. Some way of making sense of why the feeling persists even when you're trying to address it. Your loneliness is complex because human social needs are complex. Because you evolved to need multiple types of connection simultaneously. Because the alarm systems that kept your ancestors safe are all still functioning, all still checking, all still capable of firing when they detect their specific type of disconnection. And in modern life, with its vast scale and digital mediation and abstract relationships and cultural fragmentation, you're probably disconnected in multiple ways most of the time. Not because you're failing, not because you're not trying hard enough, but because the world you live in is structured in ways that make the deep, multifaceted connection your brain needs incredibly difficult to achieve. As you're lying there tonight, maybe you can make peace with this, with the fact that your loneliness makes sense, that it's not pathological or excessive or evidence that something is wrong with you, that it's ancient alarms operating in a modern context they were never designed for. You can't turn off the alarms, can't make yourself stop needing connection, can't convince your nervous system that superficial bonds are sufficient when it's programmed to check for depth. But you can stop judging yourself for feeling lonely. Stop adding shame on top of the already painful experience of disconnection. Stop believing that your loneliness reflects failure or weakness or inadequacy. It doesn't. It reflects the fact that you're human, that you come from a long line of social creatures who survived because they needed each other, that you carry alarm systems designed to detect disconnection because disconnection used to be dangerous. The danger has mostly passed, but the alarms remain, and they'll keep firing in various combinations for the rest of your life. Because that's what it means to be a social species in a world that changes faster than biology can adapt. But there's more to this story, because loneliness, as difficult as it is, has given you things, created capacities you might not appreciate, driven developments in human nature that make you who you are. And that's where we're going next, to the paradoxical gifts of loneliness, to the ways this painful signal has shaped not just your need for connection, but your ability to create it. To the surprising truth that the very thing that makes you suffer might also be what makes you capable of the deepest forms of human experience. So stay with me. Let your breathing slow. The hardest part of the night is behind you. What comes next is gentler, more hopeful, an invitation to see your loneliness not as an enemy, but as a difficult inheritance that carries unexpected wisdom. Here's the part of the story that's often missing when we talk about loneliness. The part that might surprise you, or perhaps comfort you as you're lying there in the dark feeling whatever version of disconnection has decided to visit tonight. Loneliness, this painful alarm system you've been carrying your entire life, hasn't just caused suffering. It's created things, built capacities, shaped human nature in ways that make the best parts of your experience possible. The very sensitivity that makes you vulnerable to loneliness is the same sensitivity that makes you capable of profound connection, deep empathy, genuine understanding. You can't have one without the other. The pain and the gift, they are two sides of the same evolutionary inheritance. Let's start with the most obvious gift. The one that's so fundamental you might not even think of it as connected to loneliness. Your capacity for empathy. Think about what empathy actually is. It's the ability to understand what someone else is feeling, to model their emotional state in your own nervous system, to feel their pain, their joy, their fear, their loneliness. This capacity emerged, at least in part, from the pressure of social dependence. Your ancestors, who could understand what others were feeling, who could sense when someone was struggling or suffering or needing support, they were better at maintaining the social bonds that kept everyone alive. If you could feel someone else's loneliness, you were more likely to reach out, to include them, to prevent the isolation that endangered both them and the group. If you could sense when someone felt unvalued, you were more likely to recognize their contributions, strengthen their position, keep them integrated. Empathy is loneliness turned outward. It's your own sensitivity to disconnection extended to others. The same alarm system that makes you feel lonely when you're isolated also makes you capable of recognizing isolation in others, of caring about it, of wanting to fix it, and this created something remarkable. A species where individuals genuinely care about others' well-being, not because it directly benefits them, though often it does, but because they can feel what others feel. Because someone else's pain creates an echo in their own nervous system that's uncomfortable enough to motivate action. You have this capacity, this ability to feel with others, to understand their emotional states from subtle cues, to care about their suffering even when you barely know them. It's not weakness, it's not oversensitivity, it's the same nervous system that makes you vulnerable to loneliness, also making you capable of one of humanity's most valuable traits. Now let's talk about another gift, one that might not be obvious at first. Your loneliness has made you capable of deep connection. Think about this. If you didn't feel lonely, if isolation didn't hurt, why would you bother with deep relationships? Why invest the time and energy and vulnerability required to truly know someone and be known by them? Why go through the difficulty of maintaining bonds when superficial connections would be sufficient? You wouldn't. And historically, humans who couldn't feel loneliness didn't. They maintained surface connections, enough to get by, but they didn't form the deep bonds that required real investment. But your ancestors who felt loneliness acutely, who experienced disconnection as genuine pain, they were motivated to go deeper, to invest in relationships, to be vulnerable, to reveal themselves truly, to create the kind of bonds that could withstand stress and time and difficulty. These deep connections were more resilient, more valuable, more likely to provide support when it was needed. So the humans who could form them, who were driven to form them by the pain of superficial connection, they thrived. And you inherited this capacity, this drive toward depth, this inability to be satisfied with surface connections. The same loneliness that makes you suffer when relationships are superficial also makes you capable of building relationships that are profound. Every deep friendship you have and every genuine connection, every relationship where you're truly known and truly valued, it exists because you're capable of feeling lonely. Because superficial connection isn't enough for your nervous system. Because you need depth in a way that pushes you to create it. Let's talk about another paradoxical gift. Your loneliness has made you self-aware. When you're lonely, when you're disconnected, you're forced to spend time with yourself, with your own thoughts, your own inner experience. And this creates an opportunity, however uncomfortable, to actually know yourself, to understand your own emotional patterns, to recognize what you actually need versus what you think you should need. Your ancestors who never experienced solitude, who were always embedded in the group, they never had this opportunity. They never needed to examine themselves because they were always in social context, always responding to others, always performing their role. But humans who experienced periods of isolation, who felt lonely enough to turn inward, they developed a different kind of awareness, an understanding of their own interior landscape. And this self-knowledge made them better at forming genuine connections, because you can't be truly known by others if you don't know yourself. You can't reveal what you haven't examined. So loneliness, paradoxically, creates the conditions for self-knowledge, which creates the capacity for genuine revelation, which makes deep connection possible. The pain of isolation drives you inward. The inward journey creates self-understanding. The self-understanding enables authentic connection. The authentic connection satisfies the loneliness that started the whole cycle. You might resist this. You might think, I don't want to spend time alone. I don't want to examine myself. I just want connection. But the connections you build without self-knowledge, they're limited. They're based on performance, on showing people what you think they want to see, and eventually, the loneliness of being unknown catches up with you. Because you're not actually connecting, you're just performing. Your loneliness, by forcing periods of solitude, by making superficial connection unsatisfying, it's actually pushing you toward the kind of self-knowledge that makes real connection possible. Now let's talk about something that might seem unrelated, but is deeply connected to your capacity for loneliness: your creativity. Researchers have found that people who experience loneliness often have rich inner lives, vivid imaginations, the capacity to generate complex scenarios, to think deeply about possibilities, to create entire worlds in their minds. This makes sense evolutionarily. Your ancestors who experienced isolation, who were separated from the group temporarily, they needed to be able to entertain themselves, to maintain mental activity, to think through problems alone, to imagine scenarios and solutions without the benefit of group discussion. But this same capacity, this rich inner life that helped them survive temporary isolation, it also made them creative, capable of imagining things that didn't exist yet, of thinking through problems in new ways, of generating innovations that would eventually benefit the entire group. Many of humanity's greatest artists, writers, thinkers, innovators, they've reported experiencing profound loneliness. Their isolation wasn't pleasant, but it created space for deep thinking, for imagination, for the kind of sustained mental work that requires time alone with your thoughts. Your loneliness might feel like a curse, but the rich inner life it creates, the capacity for deep thought and imagination, these are gifts, not consolation prizes, real capacities that make your life deeper, more textured, more capable of generating meaning. Let's talk about another gift, one that's become particularly important in modern life. Your loneliness has made you resilient. Every time you feel lonely and survive it, every time you experience disconnection and find ways to cope, every time you sit with the discomfort without being destroyed by it, you're building psychological strength. Your ancestors who never experienced loneliness never had to develop this resilience. They were always embedded, always supported, never forced to navigate difficulty alone. And when the group fractured or they were separated, they often couldn't cope. The loneliness was too overwhelming because they'd never developed the capacity to sit with it. But your ancestors who experienced regular periods of loneliness, who felt the pain but learned to function despite it, who developed strategies for managing the discomfort, they were stronger, more capable of handling all kinds of difficult emotions, more resilient when life became hard. You're developing this same resilience every lonely night you survive, every period of disconnection you navigate without falling apart. Every time you feel the ache but continue functioning, you're building capacity, mental and emotional strength that will serve you for the rest of your life. This isn't toxic positivity. This isn't pretending loneliness is wonderful. It's recognizing that the difficulty creates strength, that surviving painful emotions builds the psychological infrastructure to handle all kinds of challenges. Your loneliness is hard, but it's also making you capable, resilient, stronger than you would be if you never had to sit with uncomfortable feelings. Now let's talk about something that might be the most important gift of all. Your loneliness has made you capable of genuine intimacy. Intimacy isn't just closeness, it's vulnerability, revelation, the willingness to be seen completely, flaws and fears and weird thoughts and all, and to see someone else with the same completeness. This kind of intimacy is terrifying. It requires you to risk rejection, to show parts of yourself you usually hide, to be genuine in ways that make you vulnerable. Why would anyone do this? Why take that risk? Because loneliness hurts more than rejection. Because the pain of being unknown, of maintaining performance connections, of never being truly seen, it becomes unbearable. So you risk revelation. You show yourself truly. You gamble that genuine connection is worth the possibility of rejection. Your ancestors who couldn't feel the pain of being unknown, they never took this risk. They maintained surface connections, never revealed themselves deeply, never experienced genuine intimacy. But your ancestors who felt the loneliness of being unknown intensely enough, they were pushed to reveal themselves, to risk vulnerability, to create the possibility of genuine intimacy. And when that intimacy worked, when they found people who could see them fully and still accept them, the connection was profound, deep, resilient, the kind of bond that could withstand anything. You have this capacity, this ability to be truly intimate, to reveal yourself completely, to build connections based on genuine revelation rather than performance. And you have it because your loneliness makes superficial connection unsatisfying. Because you need to be known in ways that require vulnerability. The pain drives the risk. The risk creates the possibility. The possibility sometimes becomes reality. And the reality, when you find it, is one of the most profound experiences available to humans. Let's talk about one more gift before we move to how to make peace with all of this. Your loneliness has made you capable of solitude. This might seem contradictory. How can loneliness create the capacity for solitude? Aren't they opposites? Not exactly. Loneliness is the pain of unwanted disconnection. Solitude is the capacity to be alone without distress, to spend time with yourself, to enjoy your own company, to not need constant external stimulation or connection. Your ancestors who experienced loneliness regularly, who had to sit with the discomfort, who learned to function while feeling disconnected, they developed something crucial. The ability to be alone without falling apart, to find resources within themselves, to discover that they could survive, even function, even find meaning, without constant social input. This capacity for solitude is incredibly valuable. It makes you less dependent on others' approval, less desperate for connection, more capable of choosing relationships based on genuine compatibility rather than fear of being alone. Paradoxically, people who can tolerate solitude form better relationships because they're not clinging, not desperate, not trying to force connection to avoid the pain of loneliness. They can be alone, so when they choose connection, it's a choice rather than a necessity. Your loneliness, by forcing you to experience periods alone, has been teaching you this capacity. You're learning slowly and painfully that you can survive disconnection, that being alone doesn't destroy you, that you have internal resources that can sustain you through periods of isolation. This isn't the same as being happy alone. You're a social species, you need connection, but you're learning that you can tolerate the gaps between connections, that temporary loneliness isn't an emergency, that you can sit with the discomfort and come through it intact. So here you are, carrying loneliness that causes genuine suffering, but also carrying capacities that make you deeply human. Empathy, the ability to form deep connections, self-knowledge, creativity, resilience, intimacy, solitude. All of them connected to the same sensitivity that makes you vulnerable to loneliness. All of them built on the foundation of social need that's been part of your lineage for millions of years. This doesn't mean loneliness is good. It's still painful, still difficult, still something that creates real suffering in your life. But maybe it's more complex than just suffering. Maybe it's a difficult gift, an inheritance that comes with both burden and capacity, a sensitivity that makes you vulnerable but also makes you capable of the deepest forms of human experience. Now let's talk about how to actually live with this, how to make peace with loneliness when it's a permanent part of your experience, when it's not going away, when it's woven so deeply into your biology that you'll be carrying it until the day you die. First, you practice recognition. When loneliness arises, you notice it, you name it. This is loneliness, not judgment, not panic, just recognition. Your nervous system is detecting disconnection. Your alarm system is doing what it evolved to do. This is loneliness. And then, if you can, you get more specific. What kind of loneliness? Physical separation? Being unknown? Being unvalued? Cultural isolation? Anonymity? Purposelessness? Digital disconnection? Understanding which alarm is firing helps you recognize whether the response is proportionate. If you're feeling separation anxiety while alone in your safe apartment, that's an ancient alarm misfiring. If you're feeling the loneliness of being unknown in a superficial social situation, that's accurate information about the quality of connection available. Recognition creates space, a moment where you're observing the loneliness rather than being consumed by it. You're not the loneliness. You're the person experiencing loneliness. That distinction matters. Second, you practice acceptance, not resignation, not giving up, but genuine acceptance that loneliness is part of your experience, that it will arise sometimes, that it's not evidence of failure or weakness, that it's information from your nervous system about the state of your social connections. Your ancestors didn't fight their loneliness. They didn't judge themselves for feeling it. They felt it, recognized it as information, and responded by seeking connection. The feeling itself wasn't the problem, it was a signal. But you live in a culture that treats loneliness as shameful, as evidence that something is wrong with you. So you fight it, Judge yourself for feeling it. Try to suppress it. And all of that adds suffering on top of the already painful feeling. What if you stopped fighting? What if you let loneliness be there when it arises, without adding judgment, without making it mean something about your worth or adequacy? What if you treated it like hunger or thirst? An uncomfortable signal that's providing information, not a referendum on your value as a person. Acceptance doesn't mean you like the feeling. It means you stop adding resistance on top of discomfort, and often the resistance is worse than the original feeling. Third, you practice self-compassion. You speak to yourself the way you'd speak to someone you love who is struggling. Not, what's wrong with you for feeling lonely, but this is really hard, loneliness is painful, it makes sense that you're struggling. Your ancestors survived because they took their loneliness seriously, because they understood that the feeling was important, was trying to protect them. You're not broken for feeling lonely. You're carrying forward a sensitivity that kept your genetic line alive through millions of years of danger. That deserves respect, not contempt, compassion, not judgment. And when loneliness is particularly intense, when you're really struggling, you remind yourself, I come from a long line of survivors who felt this same pain. They made it through. I can too. Fourth, you practice specific response. Different lonelinesses need different solutions. Physical separation needs proximity, reaching out to someone, making plans, being around people. Being unknown needs revelation, genuine conversation, vulnerability. Showing yourself truly to someone who seems capable of seeing you. Being unvalued needs contribution, finding ways to be useful, to matter, to make a difference that's recognized. You can't fix all of them at once, but you can identify which alarm is firing and respond specifically to that need. And you do it without desperation, without clinging, without trying to force connection because you're in pain. Because desperate connection rarely satisfies the need. It often makes loneliness worse. You respond from a place of understanding rather than panic. You seek connection that actually addresses the specific type of disconnection you're experiencing. Fifth, you practice gratitude. Not for the suffering, not for the pain, but for what the loneliness has taught you, for the capacities it's built, for the empathy and depth and resilience and self-knowledge that came from navigating this difficult feeling. This is hard, especially on nights like tonight, when loneliness is present and uncomfortable, and you just want it to stop. But maybe, in quieter moments, you can find some appreciation for the fullness of your emotional life, for the depth that comes from being capable of feeling deeply even when what you're feeling is painful. As you're lying there now, feeling whatever you're feeling, perhaps you can soften toward it. Not embrace it, not welcome it, but stop fighting it quite so hard. Let it be there. Let yourself be lonely without needing to fix it immediately. Let your body run through its ancient protocols while your mind knows you're safe. The loneliness will pass. It always does. Sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly, but it passes. Because loneliness is meant to be temporary. It's meant to motivate connection and then subside when connection is re-established. Your body knows how to do this. You don't have to force it. And while you're waiting for it to pass, while you're sitting with the discomfort, perhaps you can remember that this feeling connects you to something larger than yourself, to every human who has ever felt lonely, to all your ancestors who survived because they felt this same pain and took it seriously, to everyone currently alive who is also lying awake with this ache. You're not alone in your loneliness. That's one of the great paradoxes. The feeling that makes you feel most isolated is the feeling that connects you most directly to the universal human experience. Everyone feels lonely sometimes. Everyone struggles with the pain of disconnection. Everyone carries these ancient alarms that fire in modern contexts. You're not unique in this suffering. You're not broken or different or unusually flawed. You're just human. Carrying human needs. Feeling human pain. Navigating the eternal human challenge of being a social species in a world that doesn't always make connection easy. Your loneliness is ancient. It's been with your family for millions of years. It kept watch over your ancestors through countless dark nights, kept them seeking connection when connection meant survival, kept them integrated in the groups that protected them from the dangers of isolation. And now it's yours. Still vigilant, still sensitive, still trying to keep you safe by keeping you connected. It doesn't understand that the world has changed, that isolation no longer means the same danger, that you can be alone without being in mortal peril. But it's trying to help. In its clumsy, ancient way, it's trying to protect you, to ensure you maintain the connections that your biology believes are necessary for survival. So maybe you can thank it. Thank it for keeping your ancestors alive long enough to produce you, for ensuring that the genetic line continued through millions of years of genuine danger, for giving you the capacity to form deep connections, to feel empathy, to understand what it means to truly need other people. And then, perhaps, you can let it rest, just for tonight. Because whatever it's warning you about, whatever disconnection it's detecting, it's not an emergency. Not tonight. Not in this moment. You're lying in bed, safe, sheltered, with enough resources to survive. The alarm is running on outdated information. It's doing its job, but its job is based on a world that doesn't exist anymore. So breathe. Let your body soften. Let the loneliness be there if it needs to be, but don't feed it with attention or resistance. Just let it run its course, like weather passing through, while you remain still. The ancient dangers are gone. The predators that hunted isolated humans, they're extinct. The harsh environments that made group cohesion necessary for survival, they've been transformed. The absolute dependence on small groups has been replaced by vast networks of potential connection. Your body doesn't fully know this yet. It's still running programs from the Pleistocene, still maintaining vigilance, still treating isolation as danger. But your mind knows, you know, you're safe, you're going to be okay. The loneliness you feel tonight, it's not a warning about your future. It's an echo of your past, a message from every ancestor who survived because they understood that humans need each other. They survived. They passed that understanding forward to you. And you're still here, still connected to that long line of survivors, even in your loneliness. So rest now. Let your breathing deepen. Let the ancient alarm do what it needs to do, but don't let it control you. Don't let it convince you that you're in danger when you're actually safe. Don't let it steal your peace over threats that exist only in evolutionary memory. You've carried this loneliness long enough for one night. You've felt it, acknowledged it, understood it. Now you can let it be. Let it fade into the background. Let it keep its vigil if it must, but let yourself rest. Your ancestors would be proud. Not because you never feel lonely, but because you carry their sensitivity forward. Because you understand what it means to need connection. Because you're capable of forming the kinds of bonds they needed to survive. The loneliness is their gift to you. Difficult, painful, but also powerful. It made them strong. It made them empathetic. It made them capable of deep connection. It made them human. And now it's making you human too. Sleep well. Dream peacefully. Your loneliness has done its job for tonight. It's kept watch. It's checked for threats. It's found that you're safe enough to rest. The long human night of absolute dependence, of life or death social bonds, of survival through connection, it's over now. The vigilance can soften, the alarm can quiet. You can rest, just for tonight, just for now. Everything else can wait until morning. Good night.